got a viewer.
All right.
Welcome to the last of the Good Old Boys with Blaine Young podcast here in Frederick, Maryland on 401 North Market, Studio 401. And joining me, we have to get him a hat that says Billy because we can't figure it out. But Billy Shreve, better known as what? Spike, Rudder,
Got lots of names, man.
Tripod.
Depends on the
Danny, don't ask why.
No.
Unless you've gone skinny dipping, you don't know why.
Oh, gosh. No questions.
Instead of Randy G, we got Danny G.
That's right.
How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
All right. For those that are tuning in, this is our 4th episode, correct?
Yeah.
No.
Fifth. Episode 5.
We're on number 5 already.
Yeah.
And I read in the paper that I'm going to call him a friend because he is a friend, and I have known his entire family. Jason Keckler is joining us, and he's in here for a couple reasons. Number one is he served our community with the City of Frederick Police Department, and then the governor appointed, is the correct title, the State Parole Board?
Maryland Parole Commission.
Maryland Parole Commission. I've watched Shawshank Redemption too many times. And then now he's announced he's wants to serve our public further and run for delegate in District 4. Then Delegate Barry Celeberti has announced that he will not be running. So there's a vacant seat, correct, Jason?
That's correct. Although Barry Celeberti has one more session this January,
correct,
to April. But yes,
correct. But so they've got one more legislative session, and he will not be running for re-election. So, as we like to turn back the clock, Jason, let's go. We were just discussing. You're from Frederick. Your sister went to TJ. Your brother went to TJ, correct?
That's correct.
Did all of them graduate?
Yeah, they graduated.
They did.
Oh, so I just want to make sure we have a TJ connection because everyone says that we're all Walkersville. It's like an all Walkersville podcast. But joining us next week will be my brother Brad Young, president of the county council, who did go to TJ. So
And graduated. Graduated.
Yeah, he graduated.
Okay.
He graduated.
All right.
He even took business math with Mr. Pfeiffer for those.
Wow. There you go.
I saw Mr. Pfeiffer in a parade, and the dude was in some like dance group.
Yeah, he is. God rest his soul. He has
God rest his soul. Yeah. But it was a little different setting than the old algebra class I used to have with him.
So, Jason, to get our folks up to speed a little bit, let's turn back the clock and tell us about your childhood. You grew up here in Frederick?
Yes. So, it is true. I did graduate from Walkersville High School, but I like to say I have dual citizenship. I'm a Frederictonian, but I'm also from Walkersville. So let me explain. My family moved to Frederick. I grew up in Amber Meadows. Everybody knows Amber Meadows here in Frederick.
Oh, yeah.
We moved there.
Better known as Amber Ghettos.
We call it Amber Meadows. It was a great place.
I'm joking.
Great place.
Yes.
As a kid growing up, so many people that we all went to school with. A lot of fun things we did back then.
That was a big neighborhood back then.
It was huge. It was brand new.
big.
It was just farmland. So we were right there across from Fort Detrick. We played in the creek. Who knows what was going through that
We
creek?
used to ride motorcycles on what is now TJ Drive.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Like back there.
When there
It was
was
all wooded
nothing
area.
there.
We used to go out there and shoot BB guns or things like that when we were kids. It was
that Highs that came before it was 7-Eleven. Highs, that was like Walmart coming to town out there.
Right.
That was a big deal. That Highs.
That was
pizza-
business
and the
development.
Rockies.
Yep.
Rockies. That was good stuff right
That was
there.
good pizza. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was often we had our birthday parties there.
Yep.
Growing up. So anyways, my family moved here when I was about 3.
Okay.
And we lived in Amber Meadows till right before I started high school. And my family moved out to Walkersville. Same type of situation, a lot of farmland. They were opening up a new neighborhood out there. We had lived in a townhouse. My parents wanted to buy a single family home. And we moved out to Walkersville in 1986.
1986.
And my parents are still in the same house. I was there earlier today.
Wow, that's great.
Yep. So I stopped by to visit them. My sister was in town. You know, my sister Kim.
Absolutely.
She was a cheerleader at TJ
And FCC.
and FCC. That's
And
correct.
then went to Frostburg.
That's correct. So anyways, I went to Walkersville, and I purposely stayed at Walkersville when my family moved there. I played sports. It was easier for me.
She went to Walkersville High School.
Walkersville High School.
Okay.
And then my sister was going in 11th grade, and my brother was going in his senior year. So they wanted to stay at TJ High School. Okay. So they stayed there, finished there, and I went to Walkersville, and that's where, I really love Walkersville. I loved Frederick. I maintained my friendships with all my Frederick friends, but Walkersville was a really great place to go to high school.
Tight community.
Very tight. And I was fortunate enough to where I met my wife at Walkersville High School. We worked our first jobs together when we were 15 years old at the Burger King that's no longer there.
In Walkersville?
In Walkersville.
Wow.
I liked her at 15. She had an older boyfriend. Didn't quite work out for us in high school, but then at 19, we reconnected. She was living in Field Point Apartments. I know you guys know Field Point Apartments.
Oh, yeah.
I was hanging out with a mutual friend of ours. I'm sure you guys remember Keith Shaw.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Keith
Slaw
Shaw.
Dog.
Yep. So we were hanging out one night, and he was there at Field Point Apartments. He saw Crystal up on the front steps of her building coming home, and he said, "You might know her." And so we reconnected. She had business cards. She had a real job. I'm living in my parents' basement. I'm going to FCC, living in my parents' basement, working at Safeway in Walkersville. And here's this woman's got business cards, working a real job. So I said, I might want to latch on to her. So
Safeway wasn't a bad gig, though. Safeway paid good.
It was really good.
That Safeway's still there.
I got a pay raise after I got fired from that Burger King job.
That Safeway's still there, isn't it?
It's still there. Yeah, I worked there 4 years. I worked there my last 2 years at Walkersville and my 2 years at FCC before I went away to college.
So at the time, you worked at every business in Walkersville?
I also worked at Glade Valley Golf Course when they first opened. So I made the rounds around Walkersville.
That's great.
I miss Safeway. I every once in a while I ride out there because Safeway used to be up here on 7th Street. Remember, across from the hospital?
Yep.
And then they were where, I guess, what's it?
Common
Market is. Yep. But the original one was right there across from the high school. So you meet your wife, you're going to FCC, you're working at Safeway. Then what happens?
Well, as you know, I became a Frederick police officer, but before then, it was about 11th grade, I decided that I wanted to be a police officer. I'm first generation. I have no police anywhere at all in my family. And I always had great respect for law enforcement. So I committed myself. I was a knucklehead kid like anybody else. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I did tell
You weren't a knucklehead like me, that's for sure.
No. I want to go there.
Nowhere close.
No.
More like Billy.
Probably like Billy. But I really started taking school more serious in high school in 11th and 12th grade, and when I focused on what I wanted to do. And so I went to FCC. I studied criminal justice there. I went 2 years in that program. The legendary Michael Boyd was criminal justice professor there. Great man, such a great mentor. He passed actually not long after I graduated college and started my police career. And we had a bunch of his old FCC students who then became police officers. Mm-hmm. We were all pallbearers at his funeral, which he
served on the city ethics commission. City or county, or maybe both. I can't remember.
Yeah, he was a great man. And so after graduating from FCC, I went to the University of North Carolina, Wilmington.
That's correct.
Down in Wilmington, North Carolina, down at the beach. It wasn't a typical college experience. I had an aunt. She's actually my great aunt, my dad's aunt. She had worked at the Department of Energy, ironically, where my wife has worked for a long time now. And she was retiring, and she was going up and down the East Coast looking for a place. She settled in Wilmington when I was finishing up high school. I would visit her, and she said, look, you go to FCC, you get good grades and show that you can do this. You can come down, stay with me, and go to Wilmington. And that's what I did.
That's great. Awesome. That's a good setup for you.
So, by the way, and Jason, Danny can explain it all, but I believe they can leave questions or comments in the chat box.
Yeah, in the comments, please go ahead and leave your questions for Jason if you have any, or Blaine or Billy.
And we're working on a way to call in, right?
Yes, we are. New year, we'll have figured something out for that.
So, again, if you're just coming on to the program live, this last good old boys, Blaine Young, Billy Shreve's joining me, Danny G, and our guest is Jason Keckler. We're going to talk about his life a little bit, but then we're going to get into about why he wants to serve the community in elected office as a delegate. So let's talk a little bit about your tenure as a police officer with the city of Frederick. How long were you a police officer? Total years?
Well, how long did it take you to get on the force?
Yeah, so that's a great question too, Billy.
Thanks, Billy.
Yeah.
So when I graduated from University of North Carolina, Wilmington, at the time, the Frederick Police Department only did applicant testing 3 days out of the year, all in a row. It was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it was the weekend that I was graduating from college.
Oh my God!
So I had just gotten my bachelor's degree on a Saturday, May 14th in 1994, and I drove up the road the day that I graduated. And 7 o'clock in the morning, I was at the Charles V. Maine Training Academy.
Charles Victor Maine.
Yep, longtime police chief, legend here in Frederick. And I did the physical agility test, the written test, and then you wait a month. You don't know if you pass or anything. And then Barb Domer, I know you guys know Barb Domer.
Absolutely.
She was in charge of human resources when I was going through the process. She gave me a call back a month later. You're doing great in the process so far. You passed these tests, come in for the next phase. And it took 6 months. It was a long process. Well, maybe 5 months. And I didn't know at the time if I was going to get hired. And I was also young and naive. I put all my eggs in the Frederick basket. I grew up in the city of Frederick. I was a child of the park program. You guys remember the park program? So growing up in every single neighborhood had their own park program in the summer. So
that's correct.
In the summer, we were out, sunrise to the lights came on and you came home for dinner, and we would hang out at the city parks. They would bus us to the Tally Rec Center, and we'd compete in sports against other kids from different communities.
I worked for Mr. Tally. Cheryl Radcliffe ran it, and Donna Brucci worked there, and with many others. But it was a great program.
Yeah. So that's where I wanted to serve. I knew when I went to Wilmington, I did an internship with their police department, and it's there was a urban area with a lot of crime. Drugs were rampant there, just like they were here in the early 90s. And I just got a taste for that type of policing, and you're really involved with the community. When I first wanted to become a law enforcement officer, I did ride-alongs with Albert Butler.
Oh, yeah.
Rest in peace to Al, good friend of mine. When I was at FCC, I would do ride-alongs with Al Butler, and I wanted to be a state
Trying to get Suzanne to come in here and do a food review.
Suzanne would be great for that.
Yeah.
So I would do ride-alongs with Al, and I wanted to be a state trooper, and then I got that taste of the municipal policing, and then graduating, I got offered a job down in Wilmington with the police chief, being an intern down there, and Crystal and I were together. We were engaged. To me, there was no second thought. I came up the road, and I just applied for Frederick Police Department. I could have gone to the Sheriff's Office state. I said, no, I'm doing Frederick. And October 15th of 94, Barb Domer sent me a letter saying, congratulations, you've been accepted into the 38th Police Academy. So that's how I got notified. And then December 12th, I officially started my 22-year career.
So the only two chiefs I guess you would have known is Ray Raffensperger and Kim Dine. Is that right?
Until the end of my career.
Yeah. But I mean, you only served under two chiefs then?
No. So once Chief Dine left, they promoted within. It's the only in-house candidate that they promoted from within since Ashton. Correct.
I forgot. That's terrible.
So Richard Ashton was the chief before Raffensperger, and before I got there, Raffensperger came in 92. I got hired in 94. Then Chief Dine, and then Ledwell, and he only stayed a year and a half, and then
that's correct.
He ended up leaving, ultimately ended up Westminster's chief. He just retired, it's my understanding,
did he?
from Westminster chief after 10 years.
And there was a brother, too. It's two of them, right?
Jim Ledwell, yes. And he ended up retiring and going to Brunswick Police Department.
Okay.
So once Ledwell left, that's when they opened up the process. And at that time, Pat Grossman was the interim chief of police while we were looking for a chief. Rainey McClement was the mayor of Frederick at the time. And I had just gotten appointed to deputy chief of police.
Yeah, I thought you'd be chief.
Well,
at some point in your career,
that was my goal. I prepared myself, not just through promotions, but through various trainings. I went through the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia. So I lived at the FBI Academy in July to September 2011, where I did 10 weeks of intensive training with 250 other police executives from around the world, 29 different countries represented. And that's a requirement in most larger agencies to become chief of police. You have to have either the National Academy, which is the most prestigious. You can have the Northwestern School of Command. I know several other people have
It's like an MBA of policing.
Correct. Yeah. It's very distinguished, and probably the best 10 weeks of my police career. It was so interesting just to interact with so many people, and that's really why the program was developed. And little known fact, Chief Maine went through that when they first started it.
That's really way back in the day.
Way back.
Yeah. So the police chief thing, chief of police, we're getting ready to do that again. So you've been through that process. Is there anything that you'd like to see happen?
Sure. Well, so I sort of was through that process. And what I mean by that is when Levwell left, and again, I don't know, Randy McClellan can answer this. Maybe he felt a little bitten by the fact that the chief that he originally selected only was there a year and a half. But 4 of us on the inside who all had I had 20 years at that time, but the rest of us were either upper teens or 20 couple years on. And it was myself, Rich Hetherington, who was one of the other captains, Clark Pennington, and Pat Grossman. So 4 of us applied internally, and it looked like Randy initially was going to look internal, and then he decided to do a nationwide search. He contracted with the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and they paid $40,000 for a process.
Oh my gosh!
In which they selected Ed Hargis, who became the next chief of police that I worked under. And it's nothing against the former mayor, but that decision, 1, cost us a lot of money, and 2, IACP did not interview any of the 4 internal candidates.
Oh my gosh!
So I had worked there 20 years, checked all the boxes that I needed to do internally, and I'm not saying that I should have been selected for the job, but I guarantee you, all 4 of us deserved an interview at least.
Yeah, somebody.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
just out of courtesy.
Correct.
Right.
I mean, not the fact that you're qualified,
correct,
but just even out of courtesy. But you are qualified,
and it's a morale thing too. I mean, it
absolutely.
It's not good when you have 4 people who they've put their lives on the line literally for the city and done everything that possibly can to make a difference in the community, and they obviously are competent enough to make it to that point, and to not get an interview, it makes it look like, okay, well, our careers are pretty much done. And for me at that point, with that many years in, I made the decision when I didn't get the position that I was just going to finish out my 22 years and leave. And I love the Frederick Police Department. I would have loved to stay there. Obviously, I wanted to be the chief. The FBI National Academy program I went through trained me to be a police chief anywhere in the United States. I could have gone and applied. We've had other people. Clark Pennington went to Matthews, North Carolina.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I remember that.
He was, same position as me. He wasn't going to get this job. He could have stuck around Frederick longer. He had an opportunity because he went through the FBI National Academy. He got a master's degree. He did all the things that he needed to do to put himself in a position to be chief, if not here, anywhere in the United States where he would meet those qualifications, and he got hired. And I could have done that to maybe prepare myself, sort of like a Chief Lando. Leave Pittsburgh, the place where he loved, the place where he wanted to be the chief. He applied there. He was in the same position as me, although he got to interview. But he didn't get the job in Pittsburgh. He came to Frederick. He got great experience here in Frederick, did some really good things. And now he had another opportunity in the future to do it, and he went back. I certainly could have done that. But when that didn't happen for me, Frederick's the only place I wanted to be a police chief. It's the only place I ever wanted to be a police officer. And, I look back, fondly at my career. I'm proud of the service that I did, but I also looked at it as an opportunity to take next steps. What can I do with that experience?
But it also shows you that part of that process is political because of the relationship with the new mayor of Pittsburgh, who happens to have the same last name, O'Connor. I don't even believe they went through a search. They just said, you've got it. It's your job, correct? That was my understanding. And I'm just saying it's a little bit different process versus where you have an elected versus not elected. Either everyone says, let's do these national searches. Some say, let's hire from within. Some just say, no, I want this person. That's who it's going to be.
Yeah, well, as the police chief, you serve at the pleasure of the mayor. So the mayor can just appoint randomly anybody they want, but then you have to have advice and consent from, at the time, the board of aldermen.
Yep.
Shouldn't the taxpayers have an in this? Like, I feel like if we have 4 qualified candidates, I don't think you should be able to spend that money, taxpayer money, to do a nationwide search. I mean, it would be different if you interviewed all 4 of those candidates and decided, you know what, we don't think this is a good fit. But Frederick is a special place. I would much rather have somebody who has had their career here being the police chief. I don't know. I just feel like that would be better for the citizens.
Yeah, and sometimes, that could be an easy choice, and then other times you might be in some turmoil. I mean, there's different communities that have different problems, and sometimes you need to change. And I have a lot of respect for the people that I came up with that were internal candidates when Chief Dine got hired, but Chief Dine was what the city of Frederick needed at that time. I know Harold Domer was up for that position. I have a great relationship with Harold Domer, a great mentor for me coming up. But there was some controversy at the time with Chief Raffensperger at the time. He was leading.
It's the old saying, a new broom sweeps clean, and sometimes people go to that new broom.
Yeah, and sometimes you get, when you're the deputy chief, the captain that Harold Domer was at the time, sometimes, the sins of the chief, if there's an issue that's going on, creating controversy, that can follow you because you're on the inside when that's going on in an upper level command. I can say when Chief Dine left, everybody knows we weren't in turmoil. We were at 20-year crime lows, and that continued under Chief Ledwell. So at the time that the 4 internal candidates applied, when I applied, we were in a great place in Frederick. We've always had great community support. I believe for the last at least 25 years up to that point.
So, again, if you're just tuning in, you're tuning in to the last of the good old boys with Blaine Young, Billy Shreve, Danny G's here tonight instead of Randy G. And Jason Keckler is our guest. He is going to be running for state delegate District 4, but we always like turning back the clock. Part of this podcast is we want you to know where these folks came from, a little bit about where they were raised, their background, all that good stuff, their employment. You just brought up Chief Ashton, okay, Richard Ashton. A lot of people don't realize, and this is part of the reason why I like to call it the last of the good old boy, is there was a big controversy when Charlie Maine retired. He was chief. That's when they put in mandatory age requirements. Okay,
for police chief,
correct. Otherwise, he would have continued to be chief of police. What happened was there was this young 30-ish mayor that was elected in 1974 named Ronald Nelson Young. And it was decided, and believe me, Chief Maine ran this town.
Yes.
The mayor was the mayor, but the mayor was part-time before then. So the position of mayor became full-time when my dad was elected. So pretty much, the mayor's not around. Chief of police is running the show. There used to be stories about, Jason, someone would get a ticket, and now everything's in the computer. But, they'd bump into Chief Maine. Chief, I'm sorry, I was running in to drop off my laundry. I didn't see it, and he'd write FOC on it, which meant friend of Charlie, and they'd take it up. They plead that's back when you could plead your case right there on the street. Once it's in the computer, it's in the computer. But when he retired, they did the same thing. And if my memory serves me correctly, it was a colonel or a major from the Indiana State Police, I believe. And it was either him or Richard Ashton. And Richard Ashton was seen as someone that Charlie Maine groomed. I believe Dick Ashton and Paul Mossberg held a position called inspector. It was right under chief, called inspector, right? They eliminated after Paul Mossberg, I think. But there was a big, and it was like a 3-2 vote, and they went with Richard Ashton just from what you're talking about, Danny. People were like, we want somebody hometown and this and that. And then you went through the trials and tribulations and growing pains with Dick Ashton, Richard Ashton, Chief Ashton, when Paul Gordon became mayor. And then that's when they decided to part ways, and they went to Baltimore to then get Colonel Ray Raffensperger. And so you have it. It's like 1 minute you go from the outside, next minute, no, let's go inside. And I guess we'll find out where we are now that Chief Lando has departed. But I wanted to talk a little bit. You said about drugs in the 90s. How different, because I remember and it's drastically different. Like when people say, oh, I'm nervous to walk around. Well, let me tell you, today is nowhere near what it was like in the 90s in some areas in our city. And we had some major on the street, hand-to-hand drug problems.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And so even predating me, the crack epidemic in the 80s continued I started in 94, you could take an unmarked police car almost in uniform, pull up to certain corners here in Frederick, and your car would be swarmed by people trying to sell you crack cocaine until they realize you're a police officer. But we had housing communities. We had John Hanson, Taney Apartments right up the street from here. At the time, we had Sagner, now Lucas Village, Lincoln Apartments. And we had a lot of open air drug markets in these areas. We had people coming from Baltimore, Washington, where you could sell a $10 rock of crack cocaine there. You could sell it for 20 or more here. And it was really an epidemic. And so we really went hard in those days. And it's completely
I don't think people
policing.
know how hard you all went because it drove. I mean, remember Martinsburg in that area had a horrible problem.
Yeah,
I mean, it's almost like some of the drug dealers that came from out of town said, you know what? Frederick's too serious. We're going to go find another town.
Martinsburg's still very bad, though.
Yeah.
And it was nothing to have, shootings every week. And somehow, some way, I don't understand it. We would get a ton of non-fatal shootings. And we were still, even back then, I mean, the number of fatal shootings was fairly low. But you do see a lot of people now. Social media really exposes everything.
Correct.
We didn't have that back when I was working as a police officer. I think that perception would have been 10 times worse than what it is now. But you see people, they make comments and on different social media posts about this is becoming little Baltimore and those types of things.
They have no clue.
And I can tell you, as somebody that served 30 plus years ago, it was really bad at certain points back in the day. And we really tamped down a lot of that crime. Now, that said, perception is reality too. So if people don't feel safe, they're not going to go out and spend their money. They're not going to go walk downtown and do all the things we need them to do to make Frederick a very vibrant, active community. So part of being a police officer, all the way up to the most important position in the police department, the police chief, is you have to make people realize that, yes, you share this perception, but we're going to educate you on what's happening out there and what we're doing to make you feel safe, so you will come down.
And I'm sure I can remember when the Guardian Angels moved into Sagner. You remember that?
Yeah,
you were
I
over there
remember
for
that.
a while?
Yeah.
And I guess my point is, a few, and I'm not saying that it's not a problem that we shouldn't address, but a few homeless people on the creek, or some homeless people on the creek asking for a couple dollars, is a far cry than what we went through in the 90s with a very serious open air drug market. And like you said, a lot of shootings that happened. And Frederick has just changed dramatically. And I give all the kudos to the City of Frederick Police Department because they played no games.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a different type of policing. It was, there weren't a lot of breaks cut back then. It was the time of policing, almost like in New York City with the broken windows theory, where we had to attack the problem like that at the time. Would that policing work today here? No, and it shouldn't. And I think because of the hard work that has been done over the last 30 years here in Frederick and some of the different influences and leaders we've had here, Frederick is and will continue to be a great place to live and work.
And it's not only some of the areas you mentioned, but I remember 5th Street, 6th Street. A lot of those areas had some issues, especially down in the park area. That's now the African American Cemetery area. Remember that was a park? We used to have a lot of issues there. I played basketball in there, and you had to be ready, man, because they clobber you.
He stole your water bottle.
I didn't steal my water bottle. I didn't take no water bottle. So, you by the way, real quick, you mentioned a couple names. Clark Pendleton, he moved away, became chief, right?
Correct.
What happened to the others? Hetherington, he just retired?
He retired. He went to Montgomery County, and he's the head of their automated enforcement division.
Okay.
So he does all of that. Very important job there. And Pat Grossman ended up being the interim chief again after Hargis left and before Lando. So he had 2 bites of being the interim chief during transition.
I forgot about Hargis. How long was he here?
I believe almost 5 years.
Okay. Well,
Yeah. So
it's amazing. Some of these, like I said, it sounds like you were a strong supporter of Chief Kim Dine. I did not really appreciate him until you didn't have him. And what I mean by that is you didn't realize how much he was out there until you got a chief that wasn't out there. And I'm not trying to be critical of of this current chief. I just haven't been places he is, but I've still bump into Kim Dine downtown, or I bump into him.
Kim Dine hasn't stopped.
You know what I mean? It's like Kim Dine took off the uniform, but he's still out there every day,
right,
doing something.
Yeah, and you know, the thing about a police chief is, if you look at the numbers, the statistics, depending on where you're at, a police chief usually only serves anywhere from 2 to 5 years, depending on where they're at. Chief Dine was here for 10 years. That's a testament to him and the work that he did. And there's two major front-facing positions in the city of Frederick. It's the mayor and the police chief. And Kim Dine was for years that face because he was so active.
Speaking of,
That's all right.
That's fine.
That's the chase vehicle. That's life support, I believe.
Yeah. So Chief Dine was out there in the public. And you know, the thing about Chief Dine that I respected the most is he's not a social media guy. You're not going to see him, pumping himself up or patting himself on the back.
Yeah.
He didn't have to go out there and promote himself. He did his job by being out there in the public. And I will say he was a great mentor for me coming up of how you really interact with the community. He did a lot of great things for my career because I came up as a new commander in community services division. So I was in charge of all the public interactions. I ran the in the street command. I had to do the Baker Park command every year, the marathon. So I had all these major events where you're in the public, and that was where I learned a lot from Chief Dine. But one quick funny story. One of the things that I really loved to do when I was in the police department was shop with a cop. Are you guys familiar with that?
Yeah.
So the Optimist Club here locally supports that. Our FOP donates to it, and we send officers as well as the other allied agencies. And one year I had this kid. He came from an African family. They lived out off of Route 40, and his parents, they were first generation from I don't remember which country in Africa, but I have this sweet little boy Cameron, and I go in his house and I'm waiting for him to get ready, and the parents are talking to me, and they're like, oh, he's downstairs. And it was a single family house, but it was like a split foyer, and they walked me down there. I'm not kidding. I walked down there. They had the most beautiful African art you will ever see on this ledge going downstairs on each side, left and right. And in the center of that mantle, they had a framed picture of Chief Dine.
Wow.
On the wall.
Wow.
And that I was so set back, like, oh my goodness, like these people came here to this country working hard, and they have so much respect for this chief who's out there in the community that they trust enough and admire enough that they have amongst all their, and you could tell these art pieces, they're very sentimental to them, and they have the chief up there. I mean, I think that says a lot about the man.
If you've ever been to Africa, you'd realize why.
I got something similar, but different set of circumstances.
You got a picture of him?
No, pictures of me on the mantle. But anyway, real quick, 2 questions, Jason. Number one is, were you upset that you weren't? Were you really upset? I was upset that you didn't become chief. How upset were you? You didn't even get a chance to interview.
I mean, that's it for me, is the interview piece, because I mean, I think everything you get in this life you earn, and the only way I was going to earn it was to interview and show my worth. And that, I mean, I know we're going to get into the political piece, but that's why I'm running for office. I mean, you can vote for me based on the merits. What I'm here to tell you about, what my website will tell you about me, what you know about me personally. If you already know me, I am who I am. I'm genuine to the core. I wanted that opportunity to show who I am and at least have that. It felt like I was going into a fight with my hands tied behind my back, and I never had that chance. And again, that's not to say that I think Jason Keckler was the best candidate for the job.
You didn't even get an interview.
But when you don't get a chance to even interview, like I said, it was a morale buster for all those people. And it really, I think, prematurely ended my police career. And, but that's fine too, though, because it ultimately led to me getting the next position that I held, which just increased my experience.
Last question before we move that position. I want to ask, where you serve with the state parole commission, is there somebody within the city of Frederick Police Department that has the qualifications to be the next chief currently?
So pretty much everybody that's there now in upper command, I either trained in the police academy or had a part in supervising at some point during my career. And I think the world about that. When I remember being a commander, I'd go into command staff meetings, and I thought some of our most brilliant minds were the corporals and sergeants that are coming up at that time, 9-10 years ago, that are now in these command positions for Frederick. They're definitely in good hands. experience wise in the upper positions, meaning the captain position, deputy chief positions, as far as experience, that the hands-on pieces of it, are they there? I mean, ultimately, that's not my decision to make. That's going to be the mayor's decision to make. But I don't think Frederick could really fail with what they have there, because they've been successful. And now I would tell you different if they were having issues and you were getting some serious misconduct complaints and some other things, especially coming from the upper echelon of the department. That's not happening. But I do believe that there's other ways you can go about a police search without spending $40,000. So if they are going to do that, I would implore Mayor O'Connor to look at alternative ways to pick this chief without creating such an expense.
So I'm going to take that as a long yes. that there's some people there that have the qualifications that should at least be interviewed.
Absolutely, should be interviewed.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
now
if they apply,
well, that's right. You got to apply.
They have to apply.
Yep.
So let's move on to your next position before we move on to why you're running for office. This one interests me the most.
Yeah. So and I'll be honest with you, it's a political position, and if I would have gotten reappointed, I'd still be doing it for the rest of my time as long as they would let me. That's how much I love this position I'm about to tell you. So I retired from the police department December 24th officially of 2016. So I just passed 9 years retired. When I retired in 2016, I took a whole year off. After doing 22 years in the police department, I was fortunate enough we have a good pension. My wife has a good job. I needed to decompress after all that time.
In other words, you're loaded.
No. If I had Blaine Young money.
Oh, no, yeah, right. You don't want Blaine.
A lot of bologna sandwiches. A lot of bologna sandwiches.
But you're comfortable. You're comfortable.
So I took a year off. Well, during that time that I had taken off, my wife and I experienced the worst tragedy anybody could experience. Our 22-year-old son, Justin, died of an accidental drug overdose when he was living in Howard County. So my son, he also went to Frederick Community College 2 years, got an associate's degree, went to University of Maryland, finished his last 2 years, did the 4-year program, didn't have to take a single class over that, graduated with honors from University of Maryland, and then got a job right out of college for New Day USA. They do mortgages for veterans. And a very stressful job. And that company will tell you they had parents in for the orientation for the new employees. And they said the average mortgage loan officer age is like 40s or 50s. And their company was 26. Wow. So they burned these kids in there. And my son, he had anxiety, depression. It was a lot of stress on him. I mean, just passing his mortgage test. He got through. He was excited about that. But he struggled. And he would take different pills, opiates. And so he went to sleep one night on his couch, watching TV. He was on his computer and didn't wake up. 22 years old. And, as a parent of, 22 years in law enforcement, you lose a child that hits you like a gut punch. When you're a police officer and you think you know everything that's going on around you, and it's in your own household, and you don't even recognize some of the symptoms that were going on, when I think some of our, other people that we knew were seeing some of those signs, it just compounded that issue. So for me, I needed to stay active. So I was actually told Senator Folden was in the legislature as a delegate at the time, and he was friends with a guy who just left for the Maryland Parole Commission, John Cluster. He was delegate in Baltimore County. Yep. And Cluster told him, hey, this is a good job. I think your friend would be really qualified for. So I applied July 4th. I got an interview in November of 2017 and got the call from Governor Hogan's office in December that I was going to start at the beginning of January 2018. 6-year term appointed by the governor.
And talk about that position and what it does, because we've talked about it privately in the past, and it just, what he's going to tell you, Danny, it could be a podcast within itself.
I agree.
Allowed to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Maryland Parole Commission, as a parole commissioner, there's 10 appointed parole commissioners, and your main function is to decide parole for people serving life sentences. So we're talking first-degree murder convictions, first-degree rape. So any sentence that involves a life sentence or any loss of life case. So that could be second-degree murder, negligent manslaughter, all the way down to a car accident where somebody dies, any loss of life case. So those are the cases that parole commissioners would hear. Now, out of the 10 parole commissioners, 2-person panels were assigned to cases. I would get the cases about a week and a half ahead of time. And I would go through those files and we'd review them ahead of time. Everything that this person had ever done, their whole background, all the way through everything they had accomplished in prison since they had been there. And then what we would do is we would go to the prisons, or we could also do them over video. And then during COVID, we even did them over the phone for a while. But basically, when you sit in an interview, I'm sitting across the table, a couple feet away from people, that killed, raped people, and you're deciding at that time, is this person to the point where they should be considered for parole? So some of the things we talked about the nature and circumstances of the crime. So as a former law enforcement officer, this was right up my alley. I retired as the commander of the Criminal Investigation Division. I ran murder investigations. I did murder investigations, one you're very familiar with, at Yellow Cab.
Steve Malk. Rest in peace.
Yep, absolutely. So that was right up my alley because, when I get that file, I knew what I was looking for. I knew how to read a statement of probable cause. I knew what I was looking for.
And you loved it.
Cases. Absolutely. I found it very interesting, and it's the work that I was, passionate about. So I would know the case backwards and forwards before I even saw this person. So when I went to interview them, I knew if they were telling me the straight truth, were they a little slow coming around, or were they flat out lying about what had happened? And then we also talked about everything they had done since they've been incarcerated. So you got to understand, the people that I'm seeing, a lot of people had already been incarcerated 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So we had a lot of materials to go through. So there's programming in prisons, not as much. One of the reasons why I'm running, I think there's a lot of reforms that we can do on the parole side of things. But they get educational classes. And the sad reality that a lot of people don't understand, a lot of cases, as you would imagine, from Baltimore City, PG County, parts of Montgomery County, where real violent, horrible, evil crimes were committed. But a lot of the people committing these crimes were either juveniles or very young adults who the only way they were ever going to get an education in the form of a GED was if they went to prison. Because the folks that are going to school, they're not completing their education. And the test rates, in Baltimore City in particular, are just horrible. So I would see these guys in prison. They'd get their GEDs in prison. They'd take programming. And some people ask me all the time, you said no to everybody. You didn't let anybody out, right? These are horrible, terrible criminals. And yeah, a lot of these cases are awful. But there were also people that redeemed themselves over the years, that did show that it was possible to turn their lives around, to the point where there were even family members of victims who came and testified in front of the parole commission, who advocated for the release of the person who killed their family members because of everything that they had accomplished inside prison. So we talked about what they did inside. And then the last piece is, if you do get released, where are you going to live? Where are you going to work? How are you going to
happen
yourself?
Next?
Because you've been, and a lot of people, and you got to understand, look how much the world's changed in the last 20, 30 years in just technology alone. And these folks have been, incarcerated long before cell phones and everything else, and social media, and there's a lot of pressures. Yep. So we had to make sure they were set up for success there. And they were very tough decisions. So the first 3 years of my 6-year term, the governor had the final say. So even if the parole commission said, yeah, we like this person, we think they should be released, the governor had up to 6 months to review our cases. And at the time it was Governor Hogan, he had the final say to say yes or no and agree or disagree with this. And Governor Hogan paroled a lot of people serving life sentences. And people can play the politics of it, Republican governor versus Democrat governors. Governor Martin O'Malley was governor 8 years before Governor Hogan came in. He did not parole a single individual. He commuted 3 sentences.
In 8 years?
In 8 years, did not parole anybody. Governor Hogan took a lot of heat for paroling people, but not because you would think he paroled people, he shouldn't be governor. It was the opposite. People were mad at him because he wasn't paroling enough, but they ignored the fact that other people weren't getting paroled. Which, to me, I didn't play the politics of it. We weren't there to play. I looked at the cases, what they had done on the inside, and where they were going to live. And I took training in Colorado for being a commissioner. We did it on a structured decision-making model. There wasn't these biases that people think they have, where we have a goal to just keep everybody locked up. That doesn't serve anybody any justice.
Well, and we're going to segue, because we got about 15 minutes left. I want to talk a little bit about you running for office now. And if you are tuning last good old boys with Blaine Young, Billy Shreves here, Danny G, you can post a comment in the chat box talking with Jason Keckler. He's running for office, but whether you're in office, running for office, or it could be a mover and shaker, I like turning back the clock and finding out about the salt and vinegar of these people's lives. And I tell you, one of the reasons that A, I was happy that you were running, and B, I think that you should serve, is I want elected officials that have some real life experience. And as a police officer, as you mentioned, sitting on the parole board and having to deal with some of the things that you just talked about. But quite frankly, and I hope you take it the right way, as it is, as unfortunate as it was, I do think that your son's passing has played a major role about how you've gone forward in your life in terms of looking at people, grace, forgiveness, how to help people. You got a hell of a personality. I've never seen you like me, mean, nasty, unkind. And I like that in an elected official. I don't care what party they are. I just want some real life experience. And do you think that that tragedy that has happened to you and your wife and your experiences as a police officer and being on the parole board and forget deciding whether or not these people get a second chance in life. They got to figure out how to get a second chance, because now they got to go out in the world, find a place to live, find employment.
Got to start all over.
Yeah. Yeah. And so,
in a world they don't even know.
Right.
So why now do you want to go and run and serve in the legislature?
Yeah, so just to wrap up on the parole commission thing. So like I said, it was a 6-year term. So my 6 years came up. Governor Hogan had termed out. Governor Moore came in. So under a new governor, when your term's up, you have to, if you want to keep your job, I could have just left. But if I wanted to keep my job, I loved it. I was, candidly, I mean, I'm not just patting myself on the back. I was a great parole commissioner. It was right up my alley. And I think I brought the full combination of what you would want. Somebody who's very thorough, somebody who knows public safety, somebody who's compassionate and empathetic and can understand the other side of it, somebody who has dealt with every stakeholder in the criminal justice process, including victims, which I think we disregard more now than we ever have. Yep. We're so concerned about everybody else's rights, we're forgetting about victim rights, which is another reason why I'm running. So anyways, Governor Moore had the opportunity to reappoint me, and it's political.
Sure.
But I did get support. I had Karen Lewis Young, Senator, District 3, Democrat. She and her staff wrote me a nice letter of recommendation to stay on. Ken Kerr, Delegate Ken Kerr, wrote a nice letter, addressed it to the Democratic governor from a Democrat delegate. And I had other support, obviously. And I probably had 8, 9, 10 letters of support. And they decided to go a different direction. And the Secretary of Public Safety candidly told my boss, the chairman of the Parole Commission, that she would not appoint anybody with a law enforcement background. She didn't think that was good for a parole commissioner. So they were decided to have a different agenda and outlook on public safety, their prerogative. So when that didn't happen, that was March of 2024, just like I did before. I took a break. I don't ever rush into any major life decisions. So again, now I had worked 2 great careers, and, I was at a point where, I just wanted to relax and take time and think what the next step was going to be. And politics had always been on my periphery. In the police department, I never viewed my job at all in the police department until I got out in the top parts of command as political. Once you realize that, you actually have politicians that hold your fate in their hands, whether or not you're going to get appointed or what positions you're going to hold, or if you're going to keep your job as a parole commissioner. It's politics. I got appointed in politics. So I've always been politically adjacent, but never wanted to dip my foot in it. And like you said, what you see is what you get with me. I'm not a negative person. If anything, I'm an overly optimistic person, which is ironic for a police officer, because it's a very pessimistic job because we see the worst of the worst. But that's sort of what's spurring me into
You're what we call a kind soul.
But I mean, that's what's spurring me into running for this, is because it is so divisive right now. Make no mistakes. I hold conservative values. I'm running as a Republican. I think we have a fiscal mess here in Maryland. I think we are taxed and feed to death. And it doesn't have to be that way. We don't have a revenue problem. There's a lot of businesses, even though the governor touts all these great businesses, we don't have a revenue problem. We're working on a revenue problem by forcing everybody out. But we have a spending problem. And that's one of the things that I'd like to see changed. To your point about my son, a lot of people, when they lose a child, especially to to something with substance abuse or mental health, they tend to make that their life's mission, and they open up different businesses or charities or nonprofits. And I never wanted that to be my existence, but I did want to take what I've learned, my life experiences, and use that to help other people. And I can't tell you, Blaine, how many other, I call them kids because they're my kids' age,
Sure.
but my kids' contemporaries who are now in their 30s that are struggling. It's a tough world we're living in now. It's a
Very
lot different
tough.
than it was even 20 years ago. People are having a hard time finding their way, being able to afford houses and jobs and everything else. And there's been a lot of people that have turned to substances where I have linked them up with the help that they need. And if I can do that, on a larger scale, serving the county in the state legislature in Annapolis, then I want to do that. So I'm very big on mental health and substance abuse issues. I think there's a lot of things we can find common ground on between Republican and Democrat, because it's not a Republican and Democrat issue. We're losing young adults, we're losing children to senseless things like this, that we can make change, but we can't fight each other. We can't just get in our corners.
It's a common problem.
Yes. And these are
together.
things we can score wins on that don't have to be political. So I am passionate about that. And then obviously the public safety side, I'm big on transparency. I think our government needs to be more transparent, and that's how I handled my business in the police department. I think the police chief, if they're doing their job, the mayor, they're doing their job. They're out there forward facing, and they're putting out as much information as you can. Obviously in a police department, there's certain investigations you can only put out so much information, but I think transparency is huge, and accountability. I think we need to hold ourselves accountable as elected officials and do what we say we're going to do. And treat people with respect. And then the other side is, let's hold people who break the law accountable, but we can do that in a compassionate way as well, and prepare them to be, successful people in society. And that was always my goal in the Parole Commission. Let's save the people that want to be saved, that want to do better for themselves, but get them set up. So there's a lot of workforce programs that I used to work with in nonprofits. Mental health, substance abuse. I was on the board of directors for On Our Own long before I knew my son ever was going to have any problems. I was on the Coalition for the Homeless here for the city of Frederick. I have a heart for the most vulnerable in our community, and I just think it needs to be a hand up, not a handout. And I think those are our only differences. And I think I can provide that hand up in the legislature, working across the aisle and hopefully getting some support on a lot of those issues that I don't think should be Republican or Democrat.
So if someone wanted to find out more information, I know Danny just put it up on the for people to see. What's your website?
My website is JasonKeckler, the number 4 delegate.com. JasonKeckler4delegate.com.
So they can go and get all the information they want there, right?
That's correct.
All right. Danny, did you have anything before we wrap up, or Billy, for Jason?
Yeah, I had a quick question on the parole board. How many members were on that board?
So 10 parole commissioners.
Okay. And then what was the process? Did you guys make decisions independently, or did you recommend to the governor and they made a decision?
So we did 2-person panels. We would hear a case. If that 2-person panel thought that person was a good candidate, we would present them what's called en banc, which means in front of the entire body of our parole commission. And out of our 10 parole commissioners, we'd take a vote. And if we had a majority of commissioners that were in agreement that this person should be paroled, or whatever recommendation we were making, once we got a majority vote for the first half of my tenure, we would send that to the governor's office. The governor had up to 6 months to agree or disagree. After that, the legislature took the governor out. They took Governor Hogan out. They removed him completely from the process. And they said, no, we think that the parole commission can make that decision, which I don't disagree with that, because I had great respect for the 9 other commissioners that I work with, that were all very good, competent leaders in public safety that knew what they were doing. So we made those decisions. So for my last 3 years, when we sign a release for somebody to be paroled on murder or whatever serious charge they had, my name was signed to that. So
they took the governor out completely. Okay.
Yep. And that's how it's been for Governor Moore too, and that's how it's going to be going forward. And then the other thing too, we did medical paroles, and this is a piece of irony too. So when at the time they took the governor out on parole, they did not change the medical parole side of things. So on medical paroles, these were more imminent, and in most of the cases we had, usually the person had some type of terminal illness, and they were going to die, and the state is paying for their health care, costing the state, thousands and thousands of dollars. And as a parole body, we could not make the decision to just release them on our own. It had to go to the governor, who then had 6 months to decide. Well, a lot of people that could die in prison in 6 months.
All right. Well, we're going to have you back on in the future because we didn't really get any hard issues. I wanted people to get to know you, Jason, to know what you're about, to know some background and all that good stuff. But if you knocked on my door right now in Walkersville and I answered the door, you got 30 seconds to tell me why the heck I should vote for you. What would be your what we used to call elevator speech?
This is my elevator speech. Blaine, my name's Jason Keckler. I'm running for state delegate in District 4 here in Frederick County. I have a passion for this community. I have a long history in the Frederick Police Department. I'm a lifelong resident of this county. I was a Maryland Parole Commissioner appointed by our governor, trusted with the most serious cases that you can imagine. I have personal experiences beyond just my professional career. I have no problem letting folks know that, my family has not been immune to tragedy and mental health and substance use disorders. And I'd like to see those things change. And I'm sure those things have affected your family as well. And I think we have a fiscal crisis in this state that we need to fix. And I think that public safety is the mixer. And if we feel safe in our communities, we're going to want to live here. We're going to want to work here. We're going to want to spend our money here. And with my background, I think we can accomplish all those things.
There you have it. Jason Keckler. Last of the good old boys with Blaine Young, Billy Shreve, and Danny G. And that was Jason Keckler. And you just saw the website you can go to. Danny, we got to get Jason to sign the wall.
Yes.
Or the
window,
glass.
The window of
the
fame.
window of fame. And we're going to have you on in the future to get kind of more nitty gritty with some issues as they unfold, I'm sure, in this legislature. As we're being told right now, we're in a budget crisis. It's going to be interesting how that's solved, either with reductions or additional fees and taxes. Next week, my brother, Brad Young, president of the county council, and we're going to talk about a lot of issues. But as we said on a previous show, the data center overlay was approved by 5-2. And data centers will be a big issue, Jason, coming up in the next election cycle in the city and county. Billy?
Yeah, one more thing. Just we've returned to the regularly scheduled program next week, which will be on Wednesday night. We're here on Tuesday because of New Year's Eve.
Yep. Usually we're on Wednesdays, but because Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, we did it on Tuesday. Next week, we'll be back on Wednesday at 6 p.m. here, Studio 401 at 401 North Market Street. Always open. Stop by and say hi. And for the last of the good old boys, I'm Blaine Young. Have a wonderful night.